Welcome to the Make.com Masterclass for making money online. In this video, we are covering all of the foundational concepts of Make.com, operations, functions, modules, and all of the basics you need to know before you can start building systems that actually make money. This is the only video in the course where we won't be building high ROI systems. Every other video focuses on practical workflows that drive revenue. So whether you're brand new to Make.com or you're just looking to solidify your understanding, this video is for you. If you're brand new to Make.com or automations in general, this is the perfect place to start. Before we jump into the technical stuff, let me explain why I love Make so much. This platform has been a game changer for me and my business. It allows you to automate workflows across dozens or thousands of apps without writing a single line of code. Think of Make.com as the glue that holds your tools together. It connects apps like Google Sheets, Gmail, Slack, and CRMs, letting them share data seamlessly. The result? Tasks that used to take hours are now done automatically in seconds. Whether you're running a small business, freelancing, or managing a team, Make.com can help you save time, reduce errors, and scale your operations. Plus, it's flexible enough to handle everything from basic workflows to advanced multi-step automations. Compared to other tools like Zapier, Make.com offers more flexibility, better performance, and a more affordable pricing model. Zapier is a great tool for beginners, but Make.com gives you the tools to grow and scale without limits. So if you are serious about automation, Make.com is where you want to be. Let's start with the basics. Signing up. Head over to Make.com and click the Get Started Free button at the top right corner. If you're watching this years later and the website looks different, don't worry, the process will still be simple. You will be asked to create an account, fill in your name, email, and password. I highly recommend you using the Google login. It will just make your life way easier in the future. Once you've entered your details, click sign up for free. Make.com will send you a verification email. Open the email, copy the verification link, and paste it into your browser, and that's it. Congratulations, you've created your account. Now that your account is set up, let's talk about the dashboard. So you can see that under my organization, I have currently this account is on a free plan. So you can see that basically Make will give you 1,000 operations for free per month, which for beginners could be nice. We are going to talk shortly about the subscriptions, but you can see that I also have 2 out of 2 active scenarios, and that I've used so far 0 out of 1,000 operations left. To be honest, it's not something that I'm going to review every single day. It's nice to, have a view once a week or whatever, just to check out the spikes, but it's not something that I really am keeping an eye on every single day. Next, we have teams, which, to be honest, I'm not using. We have users. If you have more than one user, you'll be able to see it here under your organization. And now let's talk about the different subscription plans that we have. If you're serious about automation, I highly recommend upgrading to the Pro plan. At $16 per month, it offers all the features you need, including increased operation limits, essential if you're running multiple workflows. Priority execution ensures your automation runs faster, and access to execution logs helps you troubleshoot and optimize your workflows. To upgrade, select the Pro plan, enter your payment details, and you're good to go. Trust me, this small investment will pay off once you start automating at scale. Next, we have payments, which basically are your payments. You can see here the invoices, installed apps. Whenever you're using an app, you can install apps inside of Make. We'll see it later. But basically here, the only thing that you can do is uninstall them. So it's not something that I'm really using. on my daily day, but it's nice to know that it's here. And honestly, variables and scenario properties are not something that I'm currently using too much, so I'm not going to go into it at the moment. So to our left, we have the menu where we are going to be navigating through different pages on Make. So theme, again, I'm not really using, but scenarios, this is the heart of Make, okay? This is where you're going to be spending 90% of your time. And we are going to dive into that in a second. Next, we have templates, which basically are great for beginners to see what is possible with Make, and you can see some templates for its inspiration. And if you click it more, we can see a lot of more of different options like connections, which are the different apps that you connected into Make. We'll have a look at that soon. Webhooks, keys, devices, data stores. Basically, we are going to explore more on that, and we'll touch on that later. But for now, we are going to focus on the scenario tab. This is where the magic happens. There is one thing I did forget to mention. If you go to Theme and you go to Notification Options, you'll find these three different options: warnings, errors, and deactivation. When you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of scenarios. But once you start scaling and building more systems and workflows, you might get different warnings. Actually, I get them every single day. It could happen because of some things like API rate limits or something like that. So it gets a little bit of annoying. So I turn that to off. If you're just starting out, feel free to leave it on just so you can have a feeling of how it looks like. But I turn that to off. When we are talking about errors and deactivation, we want to keep that on. You don't want your scenario to get deactivated and not get notified by that. It's crucial for your business because you need to take care of that. Let's go back to scenarios. And I absolutely love Make, but I do have one critic. It sometimes can get very unorganized and messy. So I would highly recommend you creating folders and using them over here. So I can put, for example, drop me, let's put 4 over here, and just get as much organized from the get-go as possible. Create here the scenarios, because otherwise, if you don't put them inside of your folders, it will look like this, and it can get very messy and hard to deal with different scenarios and find them and navigate through them. So create yourself a few different folders. It could be, for example, I have one for AI. In this account, I have one for AI, one for production, one for Make Academy. If you have different clients, it could be, for example, for HR, it could be for e-com, it could be for whatever. Try putting them all inside of these different folders. Now that we are done with the boring and basic stuff, let's get into the thing that actually makes you money. Scenarios. Let's create your first scenario. This is where you're going to spend 90% of your time inside of your account. Scenarios are the workflow you build inside of Make, and they are made up of modules, the individual building blocks of automation. They perform specific tasks like triggering a workflow or performing an action. There are two main types of modules. One, triggers. These initiate your workflow. For example, watch new row in Google Sheet triggers the workflow whenever a new row is added to the Google Sheet. And two is actions. These execute tasks in response for a trigger. For example, send an email after a new row is added to that spreadsheet we saw earlier. To create a new scenario, click the plus button in the Scenarios tab. This opens up the Scenario Builder, a drag and drop interface. Basically, this is Make. This is where you're going to spend 90% of your time. Start by giving your scenario a descriptive name, like turn Google Sheets into rows into emails. Naming your scenarios clearly will save you a ton of time when managing multiple workflow. Next, we have the settings. Personally, I don't use a lot of these settings, but the one that you need to switch on is the allow sorting of incomplete execution. You should switch it to yes. We will touch on that later, but basically this will help you managing and handle all of the errors that you're getting in your scenario. So you want to turn that to on. Next, you have the notes. Personally, I don't use that. So you can choose if you want to use it or not. You can go to previous versions. Next, you have auto align Basically, it's a cool way to just align your scenarios. Let me show you an example of that. So I'm going to build fast scenario over here. So for example, get weather, get current weather, cities. Let me put here New York. Let's do okay. And I'm going to connect over here, add a row. And I'm not going to set everything up. Hold on. All right, so let's say it's this is our scenario, and I want to align it, so I can click auto align, and it will do it very nicely and automatically. When you have a very complex scenario with a lot of modules, it won't be so useful, but when it's a simple scenario, you can use that, and it's pretty nice. Let's delete with this one. Okay, next we have the explain flow. Basically, this will help you explain the flow. So let me show you in this example. I have a router that basically will send the weather details, one to a Google Sheet and the other one to an email. So if I click the explain flow, then you can see nicely how it splits into these two different modules. Next, we have export blueprint and import blueprint. Basically, this one will create a JSON out of your project. It's just a way of sharing scenarios with other people. We call that a blueprint. It will help you export a JSON file or import a JSON file from someone else. And that way you can easily share your projects and scenarios and workflows with other people. Next, we have all of the buttons over here. These are going to be the modules. We are going to explain them shortly, but we have flow control. So for example, you could see here the router that I created. It's over here. We have the tools that help you create different stuff like triggers and get variables and a lot of different functions that we have over here. We have the text phraser. We have if I click here, add, we can see a lot of different actions. Okay, so now that we explained that, let's actually create our scenario. Let's create a simple workflow to demonstrate how triggers and actions work together. In this example, we'll automate an email notification whenever a new row is added to a Google Sheet. So add a trigger module. I'm going to click here, the plus sign, and select watch new rows. You can see that this is a Google spreadsheet module, and this tells Make to monitor the specific sheet for changes. Next, you need to add over here your connection. You can see I already have one over here, but I'm going to show how it looks like, so you can name it whatever you want. Usually, I will put something like company 1 and the date in which you created that. You're going to click sign in with Google. I'm not going to do that now because I'm already connected, but we will just open up, this window of Google, and you can proceed with connecting automatically and creating your connection. Next, you can choose here the spreadsheet that you want to work with. So you have a few ways of selecting your spreadsheet. If I click here, you can search by path. So this will allow you to search, for example, My Drive, and start searching for your spreadsheet with your folders. Or another way, for example, I can select from all and just search the ID. So I created here the spreadsheet ahead. The name of it is Make Tutorial, and I'm going to search here Make Tutorial. And when I click ID Finder, Make Tutorial, and click OK, it will search for the spreadsheet. You can see here, it just found the ID of my spreadsheet. Here I can click Select Name, and I'm going to click Sheet 1 because here you can see it's Sheet 1. Table contains header, yes, because I have here the lead name and the status. Rows with headers, and that's it. Limit, you can basically set the maximum number of results to be worked with during one execution cycle. So if I want to limit that to just one, for example, I can click 1 and save it and click OK. Now here under ID, I'm going to click all, and basically what this is going to do, it's going to start from the beginning of the spreadsheet. So it's going to start from here, for example. If I had multiple lines over here already filled, then I should start, for example, from number 11 or whatever row I want to work with. So if I click OK, then that's it. We are basically done. Now we want to add an action model. So I'm going to click here the plus sign. This is one way of doing that. and I'm going to search for email. When I search for email, you can see I have multiple options over here. I'm going to click send an email. And here it's going to look very similar to what we already saw a second ago. And you can, first thing, you need to create a connection. So I'm going to click choose an account. In my case, I already have one, which is Google. It doesn't assume that you're using Gmail. So you can click add. And here you're going to choose what type of connection it is. Google restricted, Microsoft, others. And if I click, for example, Google restricted, you can create it and then you will be able to connect it to your Google account. Okay, next we have several fields to fill out. So you have the two, and basically you can add a recipient over here. So if I click here, I can basically put, for example, Kevin@gmail.com, or I want to show you something here. You see how we got this menu on the right side? If you check out here, you'll see that it says Google Sheet. And when I hover on top of one of these fields, I'm not sure if you noticed, let me show you. Let me try to zoom out a bit. If I go here and I hover over one of these columns, you'll see that here, this module on the left, Google Sheet module, shakes a bit. This is a way of signifying us that they are connected. The source of these fields are from the Google Sheet module. So if, for example, the lead name, let me show you. I added here this column and I named that email. So if I go here and I click email, basically, if a new lead comes through here and it's Kevin and status active, and I got an email over here, kevin@email.com, then you'll see it over here. Instead of, this is like a variable. Think about it this way. So basically it says here email, but what it will do, it will go to the row that was added, the new row, and it will pull out the email from that row. So in this case, it's going to be Kevin. So if, for example, I want to send an invoice automatically, and whenever a new row is added to the spreadsheet, this is going to be the trigger, and then it will be emailed to in this case, it's going to be to Kevin. So let me put it manually. At the moment, I'm going to put here kevin@email.com. Next, let me close this one. Okay, next we have the subject line. So I'm going to put something like new row added to Google Sheet. Perfect. And now you can choose what type of email. You can choose the content type. It could be HTML or plain text. It's up to you if you want to set that up as HTML. I'm going to leave it for now as plain text. And here, this is basically where we are going to type our email. So what I could do is basically put something like, hey, you got a new email, a new row in your Google Sheet, name, and I can put here something like, let me choose the lead name here. So basically what will happen, you will receive an email that says you got a new email, a new row in your Google Sheet, and the lead name is, and you'll get the lead name from this column over here. In this case, it's going to be Kevin whenever this module runs. So if I click OK, what I could do now, let me save it. What happened here? Oh, I did not choose the, let me choose again. Update your connection, require permission. Okay, let me update that in a second. Okay, let's click OK. Perfect. Now I'm going to click run once. So basically what this does, you can see that it ran, everything was successful. You can see we have the green V over here and the same here. You can see that it says 1 over here, because basically what happened is if I click in here, and we are going to get into all of the details inside of here, but you'll see that the output of this module, it's bundle 1, and inside of this bundle 1, we can see the collection of data that it pulls out from the module. So we can see that the name was Kevin, it says active, and Kevin@Gmail. So the same here, you'll see that we have Kevin, active, and Kevin@Gmail. So this was the name. If I click here, you'll see that the output was here. You can see that we have subject, new row added to the Google Sheet. And if I go here, you'll see that the body of the email is, hey, you got a new row in your Google Sheet, lead name, Kevin. So basically this way we can see exactly what was the data that was pulled from our spreadsheet and the email that was sent from our email module. So let's test that again. So if I'm putting here testing and I put here something like inactive and we put here test@gmail.com, then if I click runs once, you'll see that if I click here, you can see that it says test email, inactive, testing, blah, blah, blah. And here we can see the same thing, lead name, testing. Perfect. So now that we executed our scenario and everything works perfect, we want to add a filter to this scenario. So filters are a powerful tool for refining your workflows. They allow you to set conditions that must be met before an action is executed. For example, if I click here, right click here, and I click set up a filter, I'm going to give it a name. So let's call that filter by status. And here I'm going to click condition. Under condition, we can choose which field we're referring to. In this case, it's status. And text operations, you'll see that if I click that, we have different type of operations. We have basic operations, we have text operations where we want to compare text. But if we are dealing with numbers, for example, you can choose it over here. So for example, if you had a column over here that was, for example, age, and you had the age of each one of these leads, and you wanted to set up whenever the lead is above 18 years old, then to whatever. So this is how you would do that. In this case, let's go back to text operations equal to active, and let me show you what happens. So now we got a filter. You can see that it says filter by status. I would highly recommend you, if you want to be professional, you want to give your filters these labels. It will help you very much to understand what is going on in your clients, and it's just going to show you that you're actually professional. So next, if I click run, hold on, I need to add here another email. So let me show you if I put Kevin2, and let's put inactive. In this case, let's put Kevin inactive@gmail.com, and let me show you what happens if I click run once. All right. Now you can see that this actually pulled one, if I move here, one bundle where it says Kevin2 inactive, and we have Kevin inactive@gmail. But if you look at the filter, you can see that it says 0, and the email module doesn't have this small number like the trigger has. Basically what happened is because we set up this filter to, let me show you, right click here, set up a filter. So because we set up the condition to be status equals to active, in this case, this lead was inactive. So if I create a third lead, even though we already saw that, and in this case, I go back then and put active, now I want you to have a look what will happen to the filter number here where it says 0 and to the email module. So I'm going to click run once, and you'll see that, hold on, what happened? Kevin active, perfect. For some reason, it did not pull that. Let's see why. Set up a filter when text operations is equal to active. Let me see. Okay, so I figure out what happened is if I go back to our spreadsheet, you see that it was misspelled. So let me put again active properly, and we will need another row because this one was already triggered. Let's call that Kevin4, and let's try that again. So I'm going to click run once. Perfect. So have a look what happened here. We can see that the filter actually got one data, and then it moved the bundle to the next email module. So if I click here, you'll see that we have all of the details over here with everything. You got a new blah, 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 Kevin4, etc. So this is how filters work. Now here is a pro tip. Filters help you save operations and keep your workflows efficient. Use them whenever you need to control when an action is triggered. Next, we want to talk about scheduling your scenarios. So once your workflows are set up, you want to determine how often it runs. Make offers flexibility scheduling options. So if I click over here, you'll see that we have this button, this clock, and you can basically choose a few options here. We have run scenario at regular intervals every 15 minutes. So this is what we currently have. So what will happen is every 15 minutes, Make will run these scenarios and will basically watch for all of the new rows that were added in those 15 minutes intervals. So we can change that to 60, so once an hour, once a minute, whatever. Next, we can run, for example, on demand. This one will run only when you click the run once button. So you can see that it's not so useful for me at the moment because I could just click run once and that's it. But you can do that on demand as well. Next, we have specific times. So if I click specific dates, for example, I could choose which days on the month and at what time of the day. So that is another option. We could also choose day of the week, day of the month, once if we want to run that once, or every day. So let's go back to at regular intervals, keep it at 15, and your scenario is scheduled but not active. Okay, so we get this warning that since you'll see here below that our scenario is not active yet, it won't trigger until I activate our scenario. So I'm going to click not yet for now. To set up, so this is how we choose when to trigger our scenarios. So we have other ways to trigger that with HTTPS and with webhooks, which we did not speak about them yet. We will talk about it in other videos, but this is how you can schedule your basic scenario. So next, before you finalize your scenario, it is important to test and debug it. Here's how. Click run once. Check the logs to see if the trigger and actions executed successfully. If there is an error, review the module settings and make the adjustment. In this case, you can see we got one operation in our trigger, and because we did not have any new rows added to the Google Sheet, and none of them were active, nothing happened over here. So it seems that everything works great. Now, if I click save and I go back here, you'll see that we have under history a way of checking out everything, all of the details, the logs. We can see exactly what happened in each one of these modules. So let me go to history and let me choose, for example, this one. And you can see that for each one of these modules, we can see exactly the bundle, the data, what happened here, and we have everything. I could also click advanced log and check out exactly what happened in our scenario. Let's go back to, I can go to edit and you'll go back to our scenario. So this is a way of checking out your logs. If something happened, if you had an error, for example, if you get an email notification about an error, that is a way of checking out the logs. And you can see what exactly happened and figure out how to fix that. Now, let's talk about operations. Every action in Make, whether it's retrieving data, sending an email, or processing a filter, counts as an operation. Your plan determines how many operations you can use each month. If you recall, I showed you that this is, for example, a free account. So under a free account, you have 1,000 operations a month. If I click run once, look what happened. So basically we have one operation, one filter, and one operation as well. Notice that the filters won't consume any operations. So to optimize your operations, use filters to minimize unnecessary actions. If I had here, for example, a router like before, and we were sending multiple emails, each one of them will be sent to your email module and will consume an operation. Okay, now let's see our functions. So I'm going to go back to our email module. I'm going to scroll to the body, and if I click here, you'll see the menu that we saw earlier. But what I want to do now is click here on this icon, and this will show us the general functions. We have different functions in here. We have get, if, empty, switch, omit, and pick. Personally, I don't use these two on the right. And the way to use that, if I hover over each one of these functions, it will show you how should I use that. Let's choose, for example, if empty. I'm going to choose if empty. Then I'm going to choose lead name. So if the lead name is empty, then I want to receive an email where it says NA. This helps us create more advanced functionalities with our scenarios. Another function that we could use is the if. So for example, we could put something like if, I don't know, if category or if a status, go back to here, equals whatever, equals active, then put true, else put false. It's pretty self-explanatory how to use this if. So if something happens, you do one thing, or otherwise you do another thing. Next one, we have our math functions. So if I want to, for example, calculate the sum of something, an average, seal, I want to floor down, I want to round, whatever, everything that I wanted to do with numbers, this is where I'm going to do that. We will shot another video exactly how to do it, but this is where you can basically use all of these different math functions. Okay, next we have our text and binary functions. So if, for example, I want to capitalize everything, or I want to make everything lowercase, or only the first letter of each word, I want it to be capital, so I can do it. You can actually see here an example of that. So if I hover over start case, you see that hello world with everything on caps became hello and world, where only the first letter is capped. So we can use a lot of different functions. This helps us basically fix the text and in a way that we want it to be look like. Next, we have date and time. So if, for example, I want to calculate now when this happens. So for example, a lead was added, and I can put here at now. All right, so, or whatever. If I have any reason to measure the timestamp, I could use a timestamp as well. So I could use all of these functions related to dates. So that is something that I can do. And also I could calculate different things. So if I want to calculate the date difference between two dates, let's say this was like a CRM, you had here lead creation and the lead first follow-up date or whatever. I'm trying to think something on the spot here. So you have two dates and you want to calculate the interval between the two. Then you could use, for example, date diff. You can add minutes, seconds. You can manipulate the time however you want to do that. So these are the date and time functions. Next, you have functions that are working with arrays. Now, let me tell you something about arrays. You can get along with, you can basically work with Make and make money with Make without using arrays. If you are using arrays, it's because probably you're trying to think about the best way to do that and optimize, and that's fine. But the way that I love to look at that is how a non-technical businessman can can check this scenario and understand what is going on. Arrays could be a bit complicated. So you could pretty much be okay without using arrays. I don't use them as much. So some people love like overcomplicate things. You could do that. You could try to optimize everything with arrays, but you can basically be okay creating scenarios, making money with Make without using arrays. And lastly, we have custom and system variables. I don't use that as much, to be honest. I don't think that for most of your scenarios, your ROI scenarios, you will need them, but you have here some system variables like data consumed and execution ID and all of these technical stuff and variable and system variables. I don't think that most of you are going to need it, especially in the beginning. So this is as for the functions. We went through them very, very briefly, just an overview of what is possible. We could talk about them for hours, each of these of these sections. So you can manipulate the data, you can organize the data, you can change the data, you can modify the data, you can combine it, you can do a lot of different things with it. Basically, usually it's for more advanced stuff. Most people, usually what they are using Make for is transferring data from one place to another. You might need to make some adjustments, you might need to modify a bit the data, but in most cases, it's connecting data from one app to another app. So this is where most people are this is how most people are going to be using your scenarios. Perfect. So at this point, we covered the role of modules, triggers, and actions, how to build a basic workflow using Google Sheet and email, the importance of filtering and scheduling, and how to test and debug and optimize your workflows.